I'm Kelly with Chicago Movie Tours. So for those of you who have been here before, thank you so much for coming back. Those of you who have not, welcome. My goal at Chicago Movie Tours is pretty simple, and it is this: to help you discover Chicago through film. So we are going to do that today by talking about The Dark Knight, one of the Batman movies that was filmed here in Chicago, and we're going to move through Millennium Station as we do that, but we're also going to make a pit stop by Chicago's Cultural Center. So as we do usually with these short tours on Sunday, we like to situate ourselves in relationship to Chicago's Loop or downtown area. So on the right-hand side of your screen toward the middle, hopefully you can see the big word Chicago there, and the pin a little bit up and to the right of that is Millennium Station. So that's where we're going to head on our virtual tour. I'm going to blow this up a little bit more for you here. Now you can see hopefully Millennium Station in the middle of your page or on your screen. And there's a little person hanging right above where it says Millennium Station, and we're going to let that little figure drop down, and that's going to place us where we are going to start our virtual tour today. Okay, so with the help of Google Maps here. All right, so right in this intersection here on Randolph and Garland Court, a little side road here at a major street in Chicago. But you see the LA Fitness and the Fifth Third Bank there on your right. And on the left-hand side of your screen is the Chicago Cultural Center, which you can't make out very well, so I've blown it up for you over here. And you can see the Chicago Cultural Center in full. So the Cultural Center, just a quick note about it, it opened in 1897. This is now an arts and culture center in Chicago with over generally annually 1,000 free programs and exhibitions over the course again of a year. This was also the city's first central library. So it has a lot of history here in Chicago, and it is also known as home to the world's largest Tiffany glass dome. So if you've never been to the Cultural Center in Chicago, I would definitely advise you go there and check out all that it has to offer, including that Tiffany glass dome. All right, so this is where we're going to start, right here of the Cultural Center on your left, that Fifth Third Bank, and the fitness on the right. But we are headed over here toward this mural on your left, painted on the side of the Chicago Cultural Center. Now this mural that we're heading toward is about half the size of a football field. So it's 132 feet by 100 feet in size, and you can see there that it depicts 20 women. Now, there are 20 women that have played key roles in Chicago's art and culture scene. All right, so we're not going to have time to go through all 20 of them on this tour, but I would like to point out 3 of them for you here. And you can see they're broken into tree trunks, right? So the first tree trunk, you have 4 women there, one of whom is looking off to the right-hand side of your screen, short hair, top right of the first tree trunk. Her name is Maggie Daley, and she is the wife of Chicago Mayor Richard M. Daley, who was Chicago's second Mayor Daley. And she volunteered to help raise funds to renovate this building that she's painted on the side of. And she also spoke out quite publicly about restoring and keeping all the beautiful buildings in Chicago as they are, and not to have them torn down, which this building was in danger of having done to it. So you might also know Maggie Daley's name because of this park and the image on your screen now. This is Maggie Daley Park in 2014. This was named after her. It includes gardens, children's playgrounds. You have climbing walls and this lovely ice skating ribbon that goes all the way through it. And this park is connected to Millennium Park, which we'll talk about in just a second, by a really unique bridge. So Maggie Daley there on the side of the Cultural Center's mural. All right, so a couple of other women we can talk about. Move over to the second tree trunk there. You have 5 women depicted there. One is a larger face than the others. That is Gwendolyn Brooks, the one wearing the glasses. She is the poet laureate of Illinois. I think took over that role after Carl Sandburg, if I'm not mistaken. But Gwendolyn Brooks was raised here in Chicago. She also won the Pulitzer Prize in 1950 and was the first African American to do so for her book. Now, to the left of her face is another face that perhaps you recognize. That's Oprah Winfrey. So in 1983, if you don't know Oprah Winfrey's history, she moved to Chicago to host a local morning talk show here. Then, of course, everyone knew Oprah Winfrey because she broadcast her very popular afternoon talk show, The Oprah Winfrey Show, from here as well. From 1986 to 2011, and there's the marquee as it stood when she was shooting that show here. All right, so there's three women: Maggie Daley, Gwendolyn Brooks, and Oprah Winfrey. And if you are interested in checking out the other 20 women, I would suggest you head over to the Chicago Tribune and check out this article here. And we can scroll down a little further. There's the artist painting the mural, Carrie James Marshall. But this interesting little map here, or diagram, gives you insight into each of the women represented on the tree trunks, tells you a little bit about them, and tells you exactly where they're located. So if you're interested in checking out more, definitely do that. All right, let's head back over to the mural before we go to Millennium Park. Now let's look up here. We haven't really looked up yet. You can see on the top right, in between two sections of the building, is the name of the mural, Rushmore, right there above those trees. It's again by Carrie James Marshall, who we just saw, and this is in an alleyway, kind of. It's a bit of a concrete jungle here with these really tall buildings on each side of it, and the artist wanted to see how he could brighten up this particular space. So he thought green, outdoor, right? So he created this park-like scene on the side of the cultural center. So we've already talked about the trees, obviously there. You can see birds as we pan or tilt up here. There's some ribbon with all the women's names going across it. There's the sunshine, which is beaming down on the cultural center, and the mural itself, of course. And we have on the other side over here some more women's faces. So you can see that the mural is split a bit here, and the artwork is quite heavier on the bottom of the mural than it is on the top. I mean, think about why that would be, because it's pretty difficult to create a mural that high up. So executing it, you know, from that height is going to be much more of a challenge there. So we can walk across the street, get a little bit closer to the faces so you can see just how small I am with my camera and how you might be in relationship to how big they are on this mural that's half the size of a football field here. All right, so we're going to keep walking down this street, heading toward the front of the cultural center, and as we do, we're going to come across another piece of public art. It's going to be here on your left in front of that LA Fitness and Fifth Third Bank building. This stainless steel sculpture over here is called We Will, and it's by Richard Hunt from 2005. So lots of public art, of course, all around Chicago. So we're going to turn right here off of Garland Court. This is the front of, or one side of the front of the cultural center. You can enter from another side as well. Here is an advertisement with that Tiffany dome there telling you to come on in and check out the largest Tiffany dome that we have. And again, definitely do that if you have not been there before. But here we are headed toward one of the street entrances of Millennium Station. So as we head down the stairs here, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this station, and then we'll talk about its relationship to the Dark Knight. All right, so we're going to head down the stairs here. Millennium Station is a major commuter rail terminal in the Loop, or the downtown area of Chicago. It's also, I believe, the third busiest train station in Chicago. That's after Chicago's Union Station, Ogilvy Transportation Center, and this one, I believe. And it's located underneath Millennium Park. Now, if you've been to Chicago, you know Millennium Park, of course. This train station is directly underneath it. So we're going to go through these doors, and then I'm going to take you above, and we'll come back down here. All right. So here is an aerial view of Millennium Park for those of you who have not been to Chicago. You're probably familiar with a symbol of Chicago over there on the right middle side of your screen, the bean, that shiny bean. It's also referred to by its natural name as Cloud Gate. To the right and above that, perhaps you can see, if my face is not in the way in the video screen, there are two towers there called Crown Fountain. They have faces on them and they are digitized and they glow with different people's faces rotating every 5 to 7 minutes, I believe. And that big monstrosity in the middle of your screen is the Pritzker Pavilion. And then that snake-like design between Millennium Park and across the road is the bridge that takes you over to Maggie Daley Park, which we talked about just a little bit earlier. Now, this is Millennium Park, lots of green space, as you can see here, and this is not always what this area looked like, of course. So what we now call Millennium Station, which again is directly below this, was established in the 1800s as Randolph Station, and it had station platforms exposed, as you can see here in this relatively old photo of this particular area. And as you can see here in the 1980s, I think is when this was taken, of what we now refer to as Millennium Station as well. But the construction of Millennium Park, which we just referred to, placed the entire station underground. So where we are walking today on this virtual tour is actually underneath all of this green space. So let's head back down there, talk a little bit more, and we'll get to the Dark Knight. So in 2005, this station was renamed Millennium Station, and they underwent a $22 million rehab project. So you can see a Chase Bank here on the left, there are stores over there on the right, and in 2006, all of these things opened so commuters could stop, they could shop, they could eat, they could pick up flowers on their way home back to the suburbs before they boarded their train. Now I'm showing you the floor here for a particular reason, and we'll get to that in just a second. So do notice the curves and these sorts of train tracks, you might call them, along the floor here in Millennium Station. All right, so let's talk about the Dark Knight and what it has to do with this particular train station. So at the time the Dark Knight was being filmed, the mayor of Chicago said that it was the biggest movie ever shot in Chicago with a budget of well over $100 million. So while shooting here in Chicago, Warner Brothers spent about $50 million in the city, and it employed 400 industry workers from Chicago, as well as about 6,000 extras from Chicago and around the area as well. So lots of economic growth being pushed into Chicago with this movie. Filming commenced in July of 2007, and commuters who were going home for the day would have walked through Millennium Station, and they would have seen several signs posted through the terminal reading RFK this way. And that would have told the crew and the cast that filming for that night would have occurred for something called Rory's First Kiss. Now, Rory's First Kiss is the code name for the Dark Knight. No one wanted the Dark Knight to be out there in public because then everyone would swarm to these locations where they were filming in Chicago. So the code name for this movie, as it was being filmed, was Rory's First Kiss. So commuters would have seen signs that said RFK this way. Now, after commuter traffic died down and the station was closed to the public, a stuntman drove a bat pod, or this massive motorcycle, of course, through two sets of glass doors that we just entered from into Millennium Station. So here that is to refresh your memory. So that's it. 7 shots, 12 seconds of film. And by 7 a.m. the next day, everything was back to normal in Millennium Station. Commuters would have had no idea that anything was even being filmed down there, let alone a Dark Knight movie, unless they noticed one sign that was left over hanging above an entrance that read, "Gotham, we're glad you're here." So there was one little clue that a movie had been shot there overnight. Now, the question is, perhaps, why would the Dark Knight want to film here and down in this section of Millennium Station? Well, I have a couple of reasons for that. Number one, ceilings. So the ceilings, as you're noticing maybe in these shots and as you saw the film go through, are pretty low in Millennium Station. So you have low angles, and this bat pod and Batman, of course, all of these things together making Batman look huge, larger than life. You can see in the top right-hand corner there that the cape of Batman is seemingly touching the ceiling in that shot there as it blows behind him. And in the third shot on the bottom row, as these people are trying to maneuver and get out of his way because he's going super, super fast in this area. So ceilings would be one reason I think that is quite interesting for them to shoot down here and effective for these particular chase scenes. And also curves. Notice the curvy architecture of Millennium Station. It's perfect to showcase the motorcycle's maneuvers as it's moving from one side to the next. And it also allows the camera work and the cameraman who's doing that to accentuate those moves too. And you remember the lines on the floor, which resemble train tracks appropriately for a train station. The motorcycle and the camera work are moving with the lines on the floor as well. So it's all very aesthetically pleasing to watch this very fast sequence go through Millennium Station. So we'll watch it one more time and then we'll exit the way that Batman enters through this scene. Super fast. If you didn't know, if you blink, you might miss this in the movie theater. But we're going to exit the way that the stuntman comes in, which is up that ramp that we just saw on the right-hand side of the screen. And then he makes his way over here to the doors, which are going to be changed out with fake glass, of course, so that the stuntman can bust through here and make his grand entrance as Batman, of course. All right, so just one thing to keep in mind, everything in a movie is placed there for a reason. These movies are super expensive to make and everything is going to be just in its place for a specific reason. Locations including. So someone sought out Millennium Station, of course, for that particular part of that chase scene in Batman. So if you want to learn more about Chicago locations in film, I do have a couple of upcoming events that you might be interested in. As I mentioned earlier at the start of this virtual tour, we have on Wednesday night Dolly Parton in Chicago. We're going to do a quick tour to a mural featuring Dolly Parton for the last day of Pride Month. And then also, if you're interested in an in-person outdoor walking tour and want to go to the suburbs of Chicago, you can come with me to Chicago and Movies in Prison. The next time that's being offered is the very end of July, and we go through an old prison from 1858 and we see how Hollywood has used it as a playground for over 100 years. So quite an interesting, very unique tour there with Chicago and Movies in Prison. So you can always check out chicagomovietours.com if you are interested in either of those two things. All right, so thank you so much for joining me this afternoon for Chicago's Millennium Station, Notable Women, and Batman. Hope you have a great afternoon.